Actors, we've all got issues, so let's talk about them. You're listening to Actors with Issues, a self-help podcast for actors, by actors. Hello, ladies, gents, and non-binary friends. Welcome back to another episode of Actors with Issues, a self-help podcast for actors, by actors. We're back with another bite-sized interview with special guests from TV, film, and Broadway. I'm your host, Juan Ayala, and joining us today is a film and television actress with nearly 100 episodes of television under her belt. You've seen her in everything from The Vampire Diaries and Paranormal Activity to Shameless, 911, and NBC's Found. Gabrielle Walsh is here. Welcome to the show, Gabrielle. Thanks for being here.
Yes, thanks for having me again.
So I'm curious, growing up, were there any particular actors that you saw their performances or their career, and that's what made you want to become an actor, that they really were like an inspiration for you early on?
Yeah, Meryl Streep was one of those inspirations for me. Like I loved her. I loved watching her. I felt like she was just so diverse and could play so many characters, and you believed it. Like she would sink into these roles and very beautiful too, you know, in the way that she would translate her any emotion or character. And it felt like you got to see her heart shine. And I was like, I want to do that. And then I loved a lot of male actors, honestly. Like I spoke about this before, like Denzel Washington, and just like how powerful and compelling he is to watch. Like I love watching him and also Leonardo DiCaprio, because I felt like, you know, in terms of like all of these actors have this like level of just like spontaneity. Like you don't know necessarily what's next, and they surprise you. And it's not just to do something cool or interesting. It's very connected to what's happening, and you forget that you're watching a movie. You forget that, well, they're mostly in film, you know, you forget that you're watching the film. And you get to get lost in those things, and I love that.
And I'm curious, early on in your career, was there a specific like sort of trajectory you had in mind? Was it like you wanted to aim for the stage? Was it film? Was it TV? Was it comedy or drama? What was sort of on your mind on that like sort of bucket list early on?
It was film. It was always film. I wanted to go to New York. And my dad, and I don't know if you're like familiar with this movie. I wasn't at the time, so I had no idea what he was saying. But he was like, you know, you're not going to New York. We're not going to like find Mr. Goodbar or whatever, which
No, yeah.
okay. I mean, it's a woman goes to New York and she ends up like moving out and becoming a call girl because she can't find work. And I was like, oh my God, Dad, that's
Like, of course we're not
but
doing
he's like,
that.
yeah, you're not doing that. But you know, New York is a very beautiful, busy, and intense city, and I just love the energy from New
Yeah.
York. And mostly, I went to go in the summers and visit my aunt who was out there, and we would go and see theater. So I love theater. I love musicals, but it was like film all the way. That was mostly what I would watch growing up, or really like, you know, like going to the movies was everything.
Mhm.
So I wanted to be a part of that experience. I wanted to be on the silver screen and be able to have the same impact that these characters had on me, to make me feel less alone and understood and seen. So yeah, and then I ended up getting into an acting program that was at Northern Illinois University, and that was for theater,
Mhm.
actually. And I fell in love with the stage because I feel like it was very similar to like how you would do when you were a child.
Mhm.
You know, how you would kind of get lost in these different, you know, like in the cowboy and the princess and whatever you were playing, and you got to like prolong that life, and there was no cut, there was no reset, there was no like mic and setup or whatever. You just got to live. And I think that, you know, I'm glad my dad was like, no, you're staying close, and I stayed close to home, because that program was everything, and it gave me a new love. And now I've done some plays since being out in Los Angeles, but not as much. But it definitely is, I think, my first love, because you get to breathe into a character in that life and really get to sculpt and cultivate and be surprised, because you're feeding off of an energy of not just, the work that you've done and the other actors involved in the scene and the stage, and but also the audience, they're another like spirit that just influences so much of what that is. And I love it. And little black box theaters too, like little intimate theaters where you can feel people breathing and they can feel you, like spit when you get all passionate in the play. So yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if sort of like if there were Broadway aspirations there, but it sounds like you want to keep it sort of more downtown, maybe at the Lortel, smaller theaters.
Listen, like, if she was singing more than in the shower and in the car, yes. Yes, yes, yes. I, was told I can carry a tune, but I was told growing up, like, who sings that? Keep it that way. And we're working past those. Yeah, we're working past those limited beliefs, but I mean, she's no like Cynthia Erivo or anything like
Right.
that. But I mean, I would love to do like Broadway plays or like off
Hmm.
Broadway. I would love to work in New York, and I even thought of just recently, because the play that kind of took me over the edge of going from being in school and being like, all right, I guess we're going to do this thing, to actually feeling like, oh my God, like I feel like I'm ready,
Hmm.
was In the Blood by Susan Laurie Parks. And I'm not sure if
Hmm.
you're familiar with that playwright. Yeah,
I'm
she wrote
familiar with
Top
the
Dog
playwright. I
Underdog.
know her Top Dog Underdog.
Yes,
Studied that in
yes,
college.
yes.
Yeah.
But like she writes with like such rhythm, rip
Hmm.
poetry. It's just beautiful. And it was In the Blood was this parody of like, not funny, but a parody of like the Scarlet Letter, where instead of this educated school teacher who committed adultery and was cast out of society, this was this woman who was, a single mother, six different kids with six different dads, and couldn't even read or write, and was living under a bridge, and she's trying to like make a way for her kids. And, I just, what I loved about this character and this story is that this woman could be so easily judged for these things,
Hmm.
especially her sexuality. But from Hester, the character that I played, her perspective is like, what I felt like when I read that play was that she was in search for love.
Hmm.
She was in search for belonging. That's like one of the most basic, deep, deepest like human needs. And it was really beautiful to play her and to explore that. And she also, something that I really like, dream roles are part of a character that has like sort of like a psychological or skew. I mean, we all do, right? But like someone who because I think the mind is so fascinating and interesting, and I'm still discovering things within my own mind. But like A Beautiful Mind was one of my favorite films growing up,
Yeah.
and so to play a character, or like Finding Eve, or like you play a character who has that, like has like a psychological skew, because this woman Hester was slowly losing her mind as she was going through these things. She was being taken advantage of by different people and parts of society that were represented by different characters, where she just wanted to be loved and to love her children. She ends up losing her mind. And I won't give away the end of the play, but I always was like, I did that at 21.
Hmm.
And this woman obviously was older, so what would it be like now to reinvest in that character, in
Yeah.
that role, and to live it out, knowing what I know now, or just having discovered so much more about myself.
Yeah, I played Arthur Dimsdale in a production of The Scarlet Letter when I was like 23, so I totally get what you mean.
Oh
I would
wow.
love to revisit that like in my 40s, or like
Yeah,
sort of full
it's like
circle and just take what you learn in life and apply it there, because what do I know about adultery and having an illegitimate child? That's not something I'm familiar with.
what do you know now? No. You're like a lot more than I did, because I think you think when you're younger, right? Like you feel like you know so much, and then you find as you go on that you don't know a lot, but like how you develop emotionally as a person, the different understanding that comes with different, life experience throughout the ages, it shifts and it changes. you and your perspective, and how much more life you could give to that character now that you have been through as much as you've gone through up until this point in your life, and then some later on.
And before we go, we are coming close to our time. I'm curious with the show Found, which as I said before we started recording, I was very, very bummed that the show didn't get picked up for a third season. I
Yeah.
thought it was doing so much important work, whether it was trying to go beyond just raising awareness, but it really did like bring in all these different perspectives because of each character having a different sort of relationship with the trauma of trafficking. Like your character was trafficked for a short amount of time. Other characters had their children went missing. And then Chanel Hampton's character obviously is sort of like at the center of it with Sir and all of that. I'm a fan, you can tell. But but I'm curious with this journey. The pilot was shot, sort of before the strike, and then aired, I think, during or sort of in the middle of it because of I think I'm getting that timing right. But you'd been with the show for a couple of
Yeah.
years. I'm curious, like, what was your big takeaway from that experience? Like, how are you different today compared to Gabrielle on day one of the pilot?
uh, yeah, a lot has changed and shifted. I mean, the industry, and then within myself, I think, you know, I like to think of myself as ever evolving, and or I hope to be aware that, that change is the one thing that is constant, whether it's in the industry, in the world, within yourself, and so like when I initially, booked the role, there was a big shift within my own belief in myself. And it's not dissimilar to what I've gone through before, but it's just at a different level and a different understanding. And now having, a series regular under my belt, not just a series regular one that is 22 episodes,
Mhm.
which is, it's very intense. We shot for 9.5 months, and to always be on in that way and creating, it's a blessing. It definitely is a blessing, especially when the strike came. But there's also like within that amount of work, finding out how to balance and take care of oneself
Mhm.
in the process. Because we deal with a lot of emotional issues and things, but then we're also dealing with, just juggling life and career, and a career that will, you know, that you work 5 days out of the week for 14 hours a day. And then on the off time, like studying. So how do you, within everything, because sometimes a character, it's not about you.
Mhm.
Spoiler alert, it's not always about your character. I loved, in the beginning of season 2, because I got a lot to like, like,
Yeah.
I mean, they gave me, they give us, um, our characters are beautiful in the way that they're written, but like when you have those scenes that you get to experience different shifts that are maybe a little more creatively stimulating instead of, moving the story along in different ways, whether it be the case or whether it be like within the other characters. It's a procedural, so it's a lot of like
Yeah.
informational, things that, like you have to find different ways to keep digging in, to keep it from being just showing up and doing the work. And I mean, some days it will be that, just showing up and doing the work. But I always seek to be creatively like stimulated. Maybe sometimes that will happen within, like always find it within your character, always find something to like gravitate towards, because I think sometimes when the focus is not on you, you can you can sit back and rest on the work that you have done previously to prepare you for this. I mean, I have hours and hours of studying in class and still in class, to be able to like rest on and just come and be like, yeah, trust myself and go.
Mhm.
And sometimes you will need to, but find things to like reignite the passion, reignite creativity, take like some risks and do different things to keep everything alive. I think when you're going, it can be easy to just kind of just allow uh, to just go along with everything rather than be an active, creative participant continually.
And the question we always end with for all of our interviews is in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
You want me to use 10 words or less? You hear how much I can like go on and
I always
on?
tell folks you can do like the 10 and then elaborate after that.
Okay. 10. Bear with me. Believe in yourself and the unfolding journey of your dreams.
Look at that.
9.
On the nose.
9 words. Boom. And what I mean by that, because I must elaborate, is like if you don't believe in yourself, no one's going to believe in you. You have to believe that you are already that actor that has whatever that dream is for you, that has won the Academy Award. That you walk into the room as though, not saying arrogance and ego, but just saying that you stand firmly on who you are and trusting yourself, and that you have what it takes to achieve, to book the room, to book the role, to achieve your dreams. It may not be that day, but that you have what it takes. And there's going to be no's, but think of it like this: if you knew that you were guaranteed a yes after 5 no's, would you care about the no's that came before that, or would you just move on? So if you know that you're guaranteed a yes, because one, you're going to keep doing it, you're not going to stop. This is your dream. You're really passionate. Your why is deep. It's beyond, just being seen and being famous, right? Because you have to have a deeper why for that, because it's it's difficult. It's competitive, but if it's part of you, it's worth it. And so those no's, you're going to keep going. You're going to get a yes. So just let the no's roll off of you and keep on pushing forward in the belief of yourself, because it's gonna line up, and you're gonna be happy that you did at the end of the day, and all of those no's will feel worth it.
Yeah. Wow. That's such great advice, honestly, because, young actors and even years into one's career, you sort of put so much importance on each audition. Like, this is the one that if I get this, it'll change my career. And it's like, if you put, how much weight do you carry on your shoulders every time you start recording your tape? Like, that's just, it can get so exhausting, but that is fantastic advice. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. I don't want to keep you too long, but
Yeah,
such a pleasure.
great.
And if anyone wants to give you a follow on socials or anywhere, where can they find you?
Follow me at Gabrielle Walsh on Instagram. We're working on the Twitter or X or whatever, but Instagram's my space.
Awesome. And for those watching and listening, you can also see Gabrielle Walsh in NBC's Found, both seasons streaming now on Peacock. Thanks for joining us. Actors with Issues is hosted and produced by Juan Ayala. If you enjoyed today's episode, subscribe to our YouTube channel or on the podcast platform you're listening to. Visit actorswithissues.com for exclusive news and reviews, and give us a follow on Instagram and TikTok at Actors with Issues.